Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in Higher Education Student Number Planning and Income Planning with Alteryx. It's a pleasure to be presenting to you. My name is Colin from Billigence, based in Singapore, and I'm really excited to showcase to you some of the work we've implemented for our clients in the higher education sector today. With that being said, let's get straight into it, and let me share my screen with you. Hopefully everyone can see my screen right now. And what I have in front of me is the agenda we have prepared for you. Firstly, I will begin with an introduction to Billigence and what we do. Speak about the involvement we've had globally within the sector, including testimonials from our trusted clients, and then highlight the use cases we've created, specifically going into detail on the Alteryx platform, the Alteryx designer, and how it helps to address the higher education use cases of student number planning and revenue forecasting. We will conclude this session with a few links to Billigence created content, such as blog posts, past webinars, and YouTube videos, before finishing with Q&A. I hope you will find this session useful and enjoyable. Please do reach out to us if you have any questions on Alteryx or the content presented. We would love to connect after this webinar and expand our professional network with like-minded data leaders such as yourself. Thank you. So first, a quick introduction about who we are. Billigence is a dynamic and agile business intelligence consultancy organization with over 10 years of industry experience. Headquartered in Sydney, Australia, we have operations across 6 offices internationally. At Billigence, we believe data is a business's most powerful asset, and we aim to transform the way people work with data. That is what our team of data enthusiasts aim to achieve for our clients. Derive business value from data by designing, tailoring, and implementing effective business intelligence approaches through a blend of consultancy and leading solutions from our technology partners like Alteryx. For us, higher education is a sector filled with opportunities for business intelligence enablement. There is much potential in using data analytics to inform higher education leaders on how operational and planning decisions can be made. We have been at the forefront of various communities and forums, including the Higher Education Strategic Planning Association, Big Data Conference, Chief Data Analytics Officers Conferences, champion the usage of data and insights in influencing strategic decision-making. On my screen here, you see some of our colleagues in Europe, based out of UK and the Czech Republic, keynoting at the HESPA conference in 2020, right before COVID, where we spoke about the exact use case of student number planning and how it helps to inform strategic planning and decision-making within the higher education sector. In the next slide are a few of the customers that we have been working with since then. As you can see here, they cover a broad range of higher education institutions spanning across Europe, Australia, as well as the APAC region. And some of the testimonials here, Peter Jones from the University College of London, Andrew Fern from the York St John University, and Stephen MacDonald from University of Glasgow are just some of the champions of the way Billigence has implemented higher education solutions for their organizations. And at the center of the higher education solutions we have implemented for our customers is student number planning. It's all about creating simple, customized tools and services that make a big impact on decision-making, planning, and collaboration. And what we're trying to do is really derive value from data, improve the business value, as well as the return on investment, whether it's from the resources or the tools themselves. So student number planning is where we have created a very easy to run model, allowing institutions to quickly run what-if analysis into their student numbers, as well as create a revenue forecast from the model. This then leads into campus utilization. We understand that space has been a big issue for higher education institutions, and that can apply during exam times where we have cohorts of students needing resources and rooms to take exams at the same time, or alternatively, in today's environment with COVID, where there's potential safe distancing between where students should sit, or the combination of online, remote learning versus in-person learning. Statutory reporting, teaching excellence, and league table tools are additional process automation workflows we have built using Alteryx for higher education customers. Statutory reporting. Almost every single organization we have worked with within higher education has to provide numbers to government bodies. And so the whole process, rather than massaging multiple Excels, triple checking the number, having multiple levels of approval, we can build you a workflow that will automate all sorts of the different reports you have to provide, whether it's on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis to other organizations. Teaching excellence and league table tools is another application of that. We understand that as higher education customers, you will be ranked by newspapers or external bodies on, for example, your teacher to student ratio, your student feedback, etc. With Alteryx, what we can do is really break down the logic of how certain external bodies derive at the score for an institution. And what we can do is take the historical data of, let's say, last year's rankings and apply what-if analysis, allowing you to really understand how you can improve against, let's say, your competitors or on the specific ranking table itself, if you were to tweak certain parameters within the calculation. On the right-hand side is data governance. As we can all understand, data privacy, personally identifiable information is a hot topic in the landscape of business intelligence. And so we have created a wide range of solutions involving Alteryx and other vendors on implementing effective data governance for higher education customers. So here, we're not just talking about creating lineages from the source system to your data warehouse to your visualization tool and being able to quickly triage why a certain number may look off in your Power BI or Tableau report. Here, what we're really talking about is creating a data governance structure where, for example, the definition of student could mean something different to the finance department and can mean something else to, let's say, the admin or planning department of your organization. Having a true data catalog and a data glossary within your organization has been found to really help differentiate, firstly, the number of data assets you have within your organization, and then secondly, really empowering people to become mature in their data governance and leading towards self-serve analytics. And lastly, recruitment and clearing, student success and retention. These are predictive models we have built for our customers, really looking at historical data and what that historical data would mean about future recruitment numbers and future student success and retention numbers. These workflows will be able to leverage on your LMS system or other data sources so we can really harness the value from data within your organization. With that being said, let's get straight into the student number planning demo. I know that was a lot to digest, but what I will do now is really show you how the Alteryx platform, specifically Alteryx Designer, can help with the higher education use cases. So let me open up Alteryx Designer on my screen, as you can see here, and firstly walk you through the user interface. I'll demonstrate how Alteryx Designer works before moving on to an example student planning model, which has been tried and tested with many of our higher education customers. Alteryx Designer is a platform where users can design, build, and automate workflows and processes. In Alteryx Designer, what you start off with is a blank canvas, as you can see on my screen. And what you can then do is drag a whole range of input files, whether it's flat files, including Excel, CSV, or to your data warehouse, SQL, Azure, Oracle, Teradata, etc., or to your CRM system, for example, Salesforce. By dragging these into the canvas, what you can then do is leverage on all of the tool palettes available within Alteryx Designer to prep and blend, enrich, analyze your data, ultimately sharing it with other people within your organization, either through files and databases, visualization tools, or through the Alteryx server, where you can create analytics apps for non-technical users or business users within your organization to also gain insights from the workflow you have built. So let's start a new workflow with a blank canvas and show you how that can be achieved. In Designer, what you will do is firstly drag the input data tool, as you can see here, and this then allows you to connect to a file or database. Here we have all sorts of file types, like I mentioned previously, the Excel, the CSVs, as well as your Access databases, to a whole range of data sources that you might have within your organization, your Amazon, your Databricks, your Google BigQuery, your traditional warehouses such as SQL Server, Oracle, or even new modern architectures such as Snowflake. And you can quickly interact with your data from a wide variety of sources. So with that being said, let me select a file and let's select student records data. And what you can quickly see is once I have selected the file within my blank canvas, I see the preview of the first 100 records I have within that file. And what you can see here is the historical records of all of our students in the example higher education customer, their academic year, the student code, the level of study, the faculty, school, department, whether they're full-time or part-time, the origin in which their citizenship or their home country is, the course year, study year, the course name, the course ID, progression mark, repeat mark, and attrition mark. And so this is data that will typically sit within your organization, either in Excel spreadsheets or alternatively within a data warehouse. And the magical part about Alteryx Designer is through all of the other tools you see on my screen here, through the preparation, join, transform, and other banners I have here, I can use this beginning source of data and quickly filter it, create additional fields through the formula tool, or join this data with other data sets, or transform the data in terms of summarizing, transposing, or creating weighted averages. So with this beginning data we have on student records, let's bring in another data set. And this time, let's bring in my course durations. So what we have here is the student records, specifically the student code, and also the course name and course ID. What I have here is the course ID, the level of study, the mode, and the course duration. And what we can very easily do within Alteryx is join the two together. So let's drag a join tool and use the student records as my left string and my course durations as my right string. And what I can do here is select course ID, matching the left and the right. I want to match the mode, and I also want to match the level of study. And let's press run. Here, within a matter of seconds, as you can see from the bottom panel, we started at 12:14 and we have finished the workflow within 0.2 seconds. Now, when I said Alteryx is very visual and very easy to use for non-technical users, what we can do here is observe the data from the left string and the right string, and then look at the center join, where all of the data is now available from both the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Now we can also select the select tool and change or deselect fields that we don't want in our analysis. So let's deselect the right course ID, the right mode. And what we're getting from the right string is the course duration matched with our student records by our course ID, mode, and level of study. And let's change one of the fields here. Instead of level, let's call this level. And what we're going to do is add a browse button after that. And let's run it again. What Alteryx allows you to do is see here, we have 7,868 records. See that again. Matching with the 640 records to create 7,543 rows. And with the browse tool, what we have is Visualytics applied for all of the fields we have in our workflow, where we can quickly check on the data quality, as well as look at the profile of our data as it goes through each step within the process. And in this way, Alteryx can take something that is very complex within your organization, put it down to individual sequential steps, and really allow you to visually understand whether or not your data process matches up to the logical process involved within your student number planning or revenue forecasting process. From this stream, we see everything is good. Let me just show you an example of what happens when we have bad data within our organization. So here, I've simply copy and pasted all of the records we had from the CSV file, but this time I just deleted some of the rows. And when we press run, what happens here is you see these yellow lines, and comparing the different results, everything here is okay, 100%. Whereas here, there's 20% null values, 20% null values here as well, and 20% null values here, because all of these nulls. And so in this way, Alteryx also helps you with data quality as you're building the workflows as well. Now, for some of your advanced users that are on the call today, I know that this might be quite basic and introductory for you, but let me just quickly run through this workflow before jumping into the student planning model that we have prepared for you in today's session. So now what we have done is we've joined two separate data sources, and this time, this is what I had prepared earlier. What we can do is filter our income stream by the academic year 2019 and 20 through this filter icon, where the academic year equals to 2019 and 20. And for all of the students that are in the current academic year, what we can then do is summarize all of the different students we have. So let me run that. From here, we have 3,716 students that are in the current academic year. And for us to quickly tally how many students we have across the different faculties, we can now use the transform summarize tool. As you can see here, we can't distinct the number of students by the level of study, by the faculty they're in. And what we end up with is from the 3,000 records down to the 15 records for all of the students. Alternatively, we can also use the same tool, but this time just count the number of students. And what we have is the 3,000 students. And here we can use a formula tool to create new fields. So these two streams join together. And what we have here is a table that quickly calculates the total number of students we have across different levels of study, different faculties within our organization. And finally, one really neat feature about Alteryx, on top of being able to send the output of your workflow into other files or other databases, you can actually create a report on the fly within Alteryx itself. So what I did here is create a table and add the different layouts. And what we have done is render a report available within PDF, PowerPoint, or HTML, where you can see the number of students, the level of study, as well as the faculty that they are in. And so this is a basic overview of Alteryx. I hope it was informative for everyone. And now we're going to step it up a notch and really showcase the full student number planning model we were going to present in today's session. Now, I know it's a lot to take in and it looks quite busy on the screen, but I will walk you through step by step in how the student number planning model is made so much easier with Alteryx. So as we begin, we have the same files for student record data and course duration. And what we're going to do is firstly join these data together. As you see here on my student records data, I have the student code, their historical academic progression throughout their university or higher education institution. So for this student, from 15-16, 16-17 to 17-18, what faculty they had studied, or what faculty they were studying in, the level of study, the mode, the origin, as well as the course year and study year. As you see, this gentleman or lady progressed through the course in 1, 2, and 3. So it's a 2-year course here, but it took them 3 years to study because they are a part-time student. Of course, the course name, the course ID, whether or not they progressed, whether or not they repeated, or whether or not they dropped out from the university or higher education institution. As you can see, this person in 2014-15 dropped out from the course, and so therefore they have the attrition mark. What we then do is join this up with our course duration so we can understand how many years does it actually take for a student to complete their studies. And so using the join tool, we have joined our student records data with our course duration data over here. What we can then do is from the results that are either joined or not joined, we can run data validation reports, as you saw in my earlier example. Of course, we like to work in a world where data quality is 100% accurate, but that often is not the case. And so here in this box, what we have done is provide any results that did not have a duration from the 2 separate data sources or tables we have within our data warehouse. And this really helps with data validation as we move across the student number planning process. Now imagine an analyst trying to do this in Excel, multiple tabs, multiple VLOOKUP profiles. I don't even have to talk about how time intensive and resource intensive it will be. However, with Alteryx, all we had to do was use a number of tools, and out comes the output we have here. So after we have joined a file, what we're going to do is we can filter the students for the current year of study. In this example demo workflow, we have filtered for 2019 and 2020 as the academic year. So for the current students, what we are going to do is the file string will take them into the next year projection. Whereas in the true string, so they are not equal. So this is historical records. What we are going to do is calculate the progression rate as well as the repeat calculation. So here we can use the familiar aggregation or summarize tool to separate out all of the students that have progressed and the total number of students we had. So if I was to show you here, we have for all of the academic years, the faculty, school, department level study course ID, the country of origin, the count of students, and how many have progressed depending on the year they're in. On the second string here, we're getting the total count of students. And what we can do is join them together and calculate the progression rate, which is assuming a cohort of students, 100 of them, how many of the 100 will actually progress to the next year by doing the count divided by the total. And that becomes our progression rate. On the repeat rate, what we're doing is exactly the same thing, but this time we're calculating how many people out of the entire body will actually repeat. Of course, along with this, you have progress, repeat, and also attrition. And you can run a similar workflow for the data you have joined here. Now, once we figured out the progression rate and also the repeat rate, what we can do is take in the new intake targets. In this example workflow, what we have gotten is all of these students intake across the different courses we have. Again, by the faculty, the school, the level of study, the mode, the origin, as well as the course ID. And so this box serves as your intake for the new year. And what we're going to do is take all of our student records of the existing body of students, those that have been studying already, calculating how many will progress, how many will repeat for every single course, year, study level combination, and bring all of those into here. So here, these are all of the existing students we have in 19 and 20. These are all of the new students we have for 2020 to 2021. And what we're going to do is, for the existing body of students, we can summarize all of them together. And what we're going to do is match them for faculty, school, department, level of study, course ID, and year to find out how many of them will progress. And here we'll find out how many of them will repeat. And so from 1920, how many of them will be in 2020 and 2021? Once we have all of the data, as you can see here, we have the total count of students, the progression rate, and also the repeat rate. We can use the formula tool to understand how many students will continue and how many will repeat. So this is the string for continue. That is the string for repeat. And we can union them together by taking data from all of the new students we'll have in 2020 and 2021. We can aggregate to get the totals. And in the end, what we have is a table that tells us for all of the new academic year, for all of the courses, country of origin, mode, level of study, department, school, faculty, how many continuous, how many repeaters from our existing body of students, and the new intake we have. With that, we can then take all of this and put this with our revenue calculation, as you can see from this arrow all the way here. And in this file, what we have is the tuition fees. And so these are for all of the courses by the mode of study, by the origin, home or overseas, or in the European region. What is the fees per course we have within our organization? And we can join this, as you can see here, with our headcount projection. And what we can do is calculate the income by multiplying the headcount with the course fee to determine the overall income. Now, typically for a higher education institution, your income is divided across multiple faculties and multiple schools. So let's say a Bachelor of Engineering will be subdivided between, let's say, the School of Civil Engineering, the School of Mathematics, the School of Physics for first-year students, etc. And what we can do is add in the load distribution, whether it's by revenue or by teaching effort for each of the courses across each of the faculties. And once again, repeating that process of joining to our previous string, we can then calculate the income split per teaching period. And so just one more time, what we've done so far is take our existing student records, filter out those that are currently in the current academic year. So in our case, it's 1920. We calculate the progression and repeat rates from all previous years. And using these rates, we will multiply that with our current year students, again, 1920, to forecast 2021. And we can then add in our new intake targets for 2021. And in the end, what we have is the headcount projection and the overall income. Now, as you can see on my screen, we also have the 2-year projection. So how does that work? Well, from the headcount we have here, we can also look at, if we were to assume the same progression and repeat rates, how many of our students taking in these new intakes will then progress or repeat into the next year, in this case, 21, 22. And for tuition, what we can do is add in an inflation rate. So maybe our undergraduate courses will uplift by 2% in terms of course fees, whereas the international students will uplift by 5%. And again, using the exact same process as above, we can now calculate the headcount for the next year, as well as the income for the next year. So we've done 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022. And here, as you can see on my screen, we are able to output the data either back into our data warehouse, whether it's Snowflake, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, or your traditional on-premise databases, or alternatively, we can publish directly to Tableau or Power BI as our preferred visualization tool of choice. Now, understandably, what I have shown you right now is a very simple model for annual forecasting. We know that within higher education, there's always changes, whether it's with our course structure, whether it's the units offered, or whether it's exam results may not be released at the time where you need to do the student number planning. And so in terms of student number planning model, we have also customized this very simple workflow to the requirements of our customers. So number one, not all historical data is available for courses or units. What happens when we have a newly offered course or unit, or a new course is heading into its second year of offering, where we might not have historical data? Or what if multiple courses are merging into one? So when it comes to calculating the progression and repeat rates here, we can apply a range of imputation methods or assume default values we have from the subject matter experts within our organization. So what's really important here is creating a progression and a repeat rate as accurate as possible, whether it's based on our historical data, machine learning methods, or assumptions we know through our years of experience within the higher education sector. Now, secondly, what we haven't covered in this simple model is also the graduation rate. As you can understand, within the higher education context, students will graduate. What we can also do is create the graduation flag by comparing the student records we have here to the course duration and understanding how many students will graduate each year and taking that away from our planning model. So to help with that, what we can do is utilize Alteryx and have the interface tools to allow users to input data as they are planning the what-if scenarios within the student number planning context. So in this sample workflow, what you see is we have created a whole range of what-if scenarios. And so Alteryx allows you the ability to overwrite existing data or existing parameters we have within our workflow by taking on additional drop-down boxes or multipliers or caps on tuition fees in this specific sample. What we have on the screen is a country scenario planning for 2021, especially done for COVID. So firstly, with travel restrictions, the trend we saw from higher education is that due to travel restrictions, certain countries were not allowed in or were not allowed to travel, and therefore we had a reduction in the number of students, international students, participating in each courses. So with this tool, what we have is the ability to filter out selected countries from our data, whether it's in our new intake assumptions or in our existing student assumptions. So if we were to do, let's say, USA and Italy, we can then use the range of interface tools and override the data we have within our databases or Excel files. Alternatively, what we might do is add a country multiplier to say, hey, there is a vaccinated travel lane between Singapore and Australia, and so therefore we're expecting an uplift in Singapore students going to Australia or vice versa. And so this is where we have the country multiplier interface. Alternatively, for tuition fees, we understand that sometimes education fees are subsidized by the government, but they will only be subsidized to a certain amount. And what we can do then is put a cap on the tuition fees. So through the Alteryx application interface you see here, we can add a whole range of user control parameters and make them interface with our existing student number planning model. And that's where you have the robustness of building the workflow once and really empowering all of the different departments or the non-technical users or senior leaders within your organization to tweak the workflow you have and come up with all sorts of scenarios for, let's say, board approval or budgetary approval into the next year or for the rest of the year. And this is where the power of Alteryx really comes in. I want to take a pause here and just let you think about and imagine how hard what I had just described there was to take in terms of effort, manpower, as well as time to do in traditional software like Excel. Alternatively, for some of our customers, they might be using very expensive black box resource planning solutions where you don't have the ability to adjust for all sorts of different scenarios, as you saw on my screen here. Or if you were to adjust it, you will have to input tens upon hundreds of Excel spreadsheets, adjusting thousands of rows individually for each student or cohort. All of that can be achieved within Alteryx very, very easily. At this point, I just want to emphasize that, again, this is a very simple model I have shown on the screen for you today. We have had the ability to create models for customers customized to inter-semester modeling, in addition to, like I said, taking in the graduation flag, the attrition flag, and also figuring out the timing of when you need to do your student number planning forecast. For example, in this model, we are in a scenario where we know how many students are coming in for the next year. The current year exam results are finalized and there's no changes in courses or unit structure. What if we didn't know how many students were to finish or were to progress to the next semester? How can we apply machine learning models and predictive models to our student number planning workflow to really achieve those outcomes? And so let me jump back into my slide here and just quickly showcase to you the extensive range of toolkit available through Alteryx Designer, and really focus on the descriptive tools, the predictive tools, and also the prescriptive tools are available. So with the combination of these tools applied to what I call process automation through the workflow you have seen in my demo here, as well as in the previous workflow, we can then get really smart about what we think with a high degree of confidence the new intake numbers will be for the next year, based on data we have within our organization. Alternatively, if you already had made investments, whether it's into Python scripts or R scripts through different people within your organization, these can also integrate very, very easily into Alteryx, where here we have the Python tool, and you can quickly input your Jupyter notebook as well as all of the models you have directly onto any part of the workflow we have here. So let's say you didn't want to calculate the historical progression rate or repeat rates. What we can do is input the Python tool and have your Python tool using whether it's regression, neural networks, etc., and have that as your progression rate, repeat rate, or attrition rate for your student number planning model. Back to the slide. Just to summarize, student number planning and process automation, it's really important to understand, firstly, what is the likelihood of existing students returning to study? And if they were to return, will it be full-time or part-time? What subjects would they take and which semester will they return? If you're working in a scenario where students are able to return in first semester or second semester, and how many of the existing students will graduate and when they will graduate. So coming back to our workflow, these additional processes can be taken care of before we have the perfect input, as you can see here, where the progress mark, repeat mark, as well as the attrition mark has already been determined in our sample workflow. Separately, currently this workflow is purely for demonstration purposes on courses. What we can also do is deep dive into specific units in which students are to take. And we can also calculate the likelihood for a student in a certain level, faculty, school, department, mode, or origin to take on a specific unit from a specific course. And you can create a probability model from that as well, as an addition onto the sample workflow that I've shown you today. And so once you understand that, what you can do is calculate the revenue contribution associated with each student, deriving at a revenue forecast. And so what you see here on the screen is a real example of the final student number planning we have done for one of our clients, going down to the level of forecasting for each semester and forecasting based on historical probability of the units they will take, and then redistributing back the revenue as well as the teaching load for each of the courses back into the faculties, and really reducing something that would take months down to a matter of minutes, as you saw me run the workflow. Maybe it's taken more than a few minutes. Yeah. In here to the final results we have here for both headcount as well as loaded income. Now, as an added bonus, since I have the pleasure of presenting to you today, I want to focus a little bit on another use case, which leverages the Alteryx platform once again for higher education, and so around campus utilization. So if you recall back to this slide, once we have the student numbers forecast for our organization, what we can do better is make informed decisions about campus utilization. And here, what we do is take a list of all of the classes to be scheduled for the different rooms or resources we have on our campus, and take a list of all of the student numbers we have as well. And that creates the demand, whereas the room provides the supply. And through Alteryx, we can look at the opening hours of the campus, create demand based on the events scheduled, and really find the optimal match between number of students and size or location of the classroom. So you don't have a situation where a class is for 50 people, but they are assigned a lecture hall of 200. And if your organization has sensors, what you can do is add in sensors within each of the rooms and pair that with your supply and demand data, and be able to create through Alteryx a scheduled or real-time, as close to real-time as possible, report of how the different resources you have within your organization on campus are being utilized. And so here we can see the occupancy by week, by day or hour, the rates by different weekdays for the different buildings, rooms, capacities, as well as look at the distribution in case of internal versus external rooms, whether or not those decisions are even necessary. In fact, for one of our clients that you saw previously on the testimonial, by implementing campus utilization, so campus optimization, they were able to delay the decision to build a whole new building, millions of dollars, by simply optimizing the amount of rooms and how they are allocated to the different students, the different faculties we have from our student number planning model. And again, all of this is done through Alteryx with its plethora of tools, preparation, join, as well as the descriptive, predictive, as well as prescriptive tools. Now, the interesting thing about Alteryx, and I'm definitely not doing it any justice with the limited time I have in today's session, is as you venture through your Alteryx journey, looking at AI and machine learning, Alteryx is constantly innovating. In the latest release with the Alteryx Intelligence Suite, they have now made advances into image processing. How can we take an image input, whether it's PDF, JPEG, PNG, or BMP, and turn that into image to text using optical character recognition? And at the same time, what you can do is build profiles on top of these images, now processed into text or just the images by themselves, and then train an image classification model to create an automated process to classify new images. Take pictures, PDFs, and receipts, and create anomaly detection and automate analysis within your organization. Once you have processed the images into text, what you can also do is text mining. You can do text pre-processing or sentiment analysis, all with the usage of a single tool palette within Alteryx. So we see this being applied to potentially survey data, whether it's about the lectures themselves through the feedback we gather from our students, or alternatively through any survey data we have access to within our higher education. And then again, be able to perform whether it's sentiment analysis or topic modeling very easily within Alteryx through the drag and drop of a simple tool, as you can see here. Now, as promised, I wanted to conclude this session with a few resources which can help you beyond this webinar from us at Billigence. On our website, billigence.com, you're able to find further higher education use cases and case studies from our clients, the Alteryx Designer Trial, in addition to our service offerings in Australia, Asia, and Europe. Our website is also a very great place to go to for our curated content, including original blog posts and monthly webinar events with our technology partners. Past recordings of these webinars can be accessed via our YouTube channel, and I have also included the URL of some of these content on my slide here. And that brings me to the end of the content I have prepared for you in this webinar. Thank you once again for your time. I hope this session was useful. All of our offices can be contacted via our website, and we look forward to hearing from you. I will now be happy to answer any questions we have received from the audience in the chat box window. Just bear with me while I bring up the screen. So Charissa had a question on, does your company have much experience with using predictive analytics for student progression or similar? The answer to that is yes. With the limited time we have today, Charissa, I wasn't able to show you some of the demo workflows we have, but absolutely, we have created a whole variety of models using the Alteryx design interface itself, as well as Python tools to help organizations like yours better predict whether or not a student is to progress through the academic course, or alternatively, whether or not they will come back during the middle of their studies. So yes, we definitely have done that. Yeah, a recording will be provided to everybody that has registered to this webinar. And I see that Philip has already answered that question. And jumping to the published questions, Lucy has asked, how can business users or other faculties get insights from student number planning model? Well, Lucy, what you saw today in the demo was how an analyst, such as myself, would actually create a workflow. Once you have better done the logic and validated it, what you can do is distribute that through Alteryx Server. In a scenario where all of the business users simply have to navigate to Alteryx Server, press the run button, and be able to get the report, or alternatively, upload their own Excel spreadsheets on what they think the progression rate, repeat rate, or intake will be. And then from the data, any data the users will have, the business users, that will go through the same preparation you have built within Alteryx Designer. And then they can get the insights and perform what if analysis to, let's say, how would an uplift of 50% of students in a certain course impact on our revenue or impact on our teaching load. All of that can be facilitated through the Alteryx server. Alternatively, what you can do is through the Alteryx Designer workflow, publish the insights onto your visualization platform and distribute that for everyone else to understand. What we have with Alteryx is speed and efficiency. And once you get that right, all sorts of what-if analysis can be possible for yourself as well as other business users within your organization. Brad asked a question, can the workflow integrate with data warehouses for input and output? Definitely. In the example, I have shown Excel files, but you can definitely integrate that with your on-premise database, alternatively with your cloud databases, or publish it to your Tableau server, your Power BI server, etc. All of that can be done. In fact, on the screen, you had seen Alteryx Designer on my computer. What you can do as a Nirvana is really upload the workflow to Alteryx server. And then Alteryx server can be scheduled to run every single day, or let's say every single month. So any changes in your data warehouse to students dropping out or new students transferring in can go through the model again and give you a new projection on, let's say, your end of year or end of term student headcount or your income for the rest of the year, and how the income might differentiate between, let's say, domestic subsidized students and international students, etc. We had a question, does Billigence offer consulting and training? Yes, definitely. We have a whole range of services. We do training, we do onboarding in terms of, let's say you bought Alteryx and you need some help, initial uplift. We help with the training of your technical users. We can also do long-term consulting as well per use case, or let's say if you're doing a massive transformation within your organization, we can assist with that as well. Is there a free trial of Alteryx I can download? Yep, I see Philip has answered that already. You can go to our website and a free trial of Alteryx Designer is available to you. How can I export the dataset profile to a CSV file? From David. So thank you for the question, David. What you can do is use the, I wanted to show my screen, but I think I should talk instead. What you can do is use the output tool in your Alteryx workflow and directly create a new Excel or CSV file. Alternatively, as you would have seen through my example demo, you have the results screen on the bottom section, and you can simply copy, let's say, the example data for a quick sanity check within your workflow. So the use case that I personally run into a lot is, let's say I'm debugging. I have hundreds of rows of records, but for some reason, 100 of them didn't match. So then I can quickly use a filter to see those that didn't match and look at, okay, what is it not matching? Is it because I have an extra space? Is it because I have a certain typo within my data? So all of that can be done as well. So you can either export it through the output tool or alternatively copy and paste from the results window. Vishal asked, can the model be adjusted for inter-semester forecasting? Yes, it absolutely can. It is a bit more complicated though, because with inter-semester, what you have is number one, different intakes. So they can either start semester 1 or semester 2. Alternatively, you need to look at the progression per semester, which is a lot harder to do when you're looking at progression per year. And so what we typically do is take the student load, let's say they have to do 8 subjects a year or 8 units a year, and divide that by the number of semesters. So let's assume you have to do 8 subjects per year, and you have 2 semesters to do so. What we'll then do is for each semester, the full load will be 4 units, whereas the part-time load will be anything less than that. And what you can do is create additional calculations on progression and attrition, as well as repeat ratios within the example workflow, and do that inter-semester. And then what you do is at the beginning of the semester, 1, and at the end of semester 2, you add the numbers together, and that will then give you back to the annual projection, because we understand that most organizations will plan on an annual basis and report up to the board annually for the number of students, the number of revenue, etc. And Peter asked, how can the student number planning process be automated? And so automation is twofold. The first one is once you have the basic workflow bedded down, it's simply about tweaking the outliers. So Peter, every single time you need to give a number to, let's say, the student planning business unit, or alternatively to the board, majority of the work is done for you. You simply have to press run, and within a matter of like 30 seconds, you can get the number. Then what you can do is from that base case, tweak for any changes you have within your organization. So let's say COVID, there's no more international students coming in, or alternatively, we're offering a new course. What that means is from your example workflow, you have like a separate stream catering for those specific outliers of potentially, let's say, two of your courses are merging together to form one single course. What you can do is make that adjustment within your workflow through another stream or through the formula tool, and then rerun your what if scenarios. So that is the analyst automation. The bulk of the work is done for you already. You simply have to tweak for the edge cases. And then when you're talking about full automation, this is what I had said to, I believe, Brad previously. You can leverage Alteryx server and ask the server to retrieve the data from your data warehouse and then run the model every single month, day, or week and output it into another data warehouse or another visualization tool. Why is that important? And why is that automation very useful? It's because we understand that within universities or higher education, you have like census dates, right? And so what happens is before census date, a lot of students might drop out. And so if they were to drop out, that won't contribute to both your revenue and also your teaching load. And so what you want to do is really run the planning tool. Firstly, let's say at the end of a year, so you can forecast next year's numbers, at the beginning of the semester in terms of when it starts, and at the end of your census date. Those are the three critical points where you want automation and be able to run these what if scenarios as much as possible. So by the end of your census date or leading up to it, you have the most accurate number possible. And if you're forecasting on a yearly basis, etc., then after your census date, that number will serve as a basis for, let's say, the next year forecast and the year after that. And that's how automation can be achieved using Alteryx server and also our data warehouse. Hopefully that answers all of the questions we have on the call. Sorry, I'm a bit rushed. I'm just really conscious of time. But for anyone on the call, and I see we have quite a number of attendees, if you do have any questions, feel free to contact us. I'll be more than happy to show you the broad range of work we've done for higher education, and also my colleagues across Australia and Europe can also help as well. Any final questions from anyone from the call? Helen had a question for repeaters. Do you mean a student may fail a subject and retake the subject? Absolutely. Or alternatively, yes. So repeaters might be students that will fail a subject and retake the subject. Repeaters can also be counted as those that are going to, let's say, drop out. So it really depends on when you run the student number planning model. If you do it at the beginning of the year, before the census date, repeaters can be also incorporating all those people that might potentially drop out and come back the next semester, especially if you're forecasting on a yearly basis. Hopefully that answers your question. And I think we're just on time. Thank you once again for joining, and really thank you for all of the questions we had through the live event Q&A. Like I said, if you do want to get in touch, we'll be more than happy to showcase our solution to you and go into further detail about your specific organization and how us as Billigence, leveraging Alteryx, can help you get better with student number planning. Thank you.